Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, in which we look at the annals of true crime to find events that happened on this week in history. I'm your host, Mark Decano, and with me are my friends, Jed Lester.
All right.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
The date we're looking at today is the 7th of September. On this date in 1978, Georgi Markov was heading across Waterloo Bridge for a bus to work when he felt a sharp pain in his leg. He looked around to see a man picking up an umbrella who then hurried across the street to a waiting taxi. Markov fell ill and 4 days later he died, while a story that could have come straight from a James Bond novel was born.
I remember this being on the news, and it was, I was going to say I'd like to think, but I remember thinking if he wasn't killed by an umbrella, would any of us be talking about this?
Yeah, it's probably true. I don't think.
Do you know what I mean? It's like if it was. I suppose it's still murder, isn't it? But the reason why we're talking about it is because it's an umbrella.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Was Mary Poppins ruled out? As the killer. I mean, I know someone being murdered on a London bridge is bad, but the point of it is, it is the point of it, because that's what killed him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking, this is 1978, so this is the height of the Cold War. Sort of 60s to 80s is the major time, and this is bang in the middle. This is Bulgaria, and Bulgaria at the time was obviously a communist dictatorship. Todor Zivkov was president of Bulgaria at the time. He was in office for 35 years.
Wow.
And obviously it was a Warsaw Pact country, Soviet-backed operation, but a hugely repressive regime. I can give you examples. One of the things that the regime did was there was a minority Turkish population in Bulgaria, and one of the laws forced those Turks to take on Bulgarian names. They couldn't have their own names because they weren't ethnically sound, according to the regime.
Yeah.
So there was a forced name change, and they also expelled 360,000 Turks across the border.
Back to Turkey,
which even at the time was frowned upon by the regimes in Russia and Poland, who thought it was going a bit far.
Right.
So
coming from them.
So it was very authoritarian, very a repressive regime. And Georgi Markov was a journalist, novelist, playwright, and he wrote a lot about how this was not on, which is why he found himself out of favour with the regime.
Oh, okay. Is that why he lived in London?
Yeah, he defected and ended up in London.
Yeah, he defected. He went to Italy, and then the Bulgarian government said that they weren't going to renew his passport. So he basically defected. This is about 1968. And then he moved to London, and he got a job with the BBC World Service.
What, not as like a presenter or something?
Yeah,
presenting his views.
Presenting his views, yeah. Basically
criticising. So that's where it went wrong.
His BBC stuff, I think, was a little bit critical, but I think most of his really vociferous stuff was on. But was it Radio Free Europe?
Yes,
that was what they really didn't want him to be doing.
Yeah, Radio Free Europe. That was backed by the US. You can imagine it's basically just slagging off the Warsaw Pact countries anyway. So he was all on board with that, and he also did some work for the West German Deutsche Welle. So he was basically broadcasting from the west to the east, basically
his views about
the
whatever
regime,
revealing the whatever truth or something. Well, there you go. I mean, that was his fatal mistake, I suppose. But it was strong enough to I don't know, send someone over to get him. Basically, is that effectively what?
Yeah, basically. I mean, he was good. Obviously, because he was a writer, a novelist, and playwright, and everything. When he wrote articles and when he broadcast things, he was very passionate he was quite sarcastic.
He used sarcasm, dramatic irony, metaphor, pathos, puns, parody, litotes, and satire.
Yeah, I thought sarcasm didn't translate well in Eastern European, but
If
apparently...
there's one thing dictatorships don't like, it's someone taking the piss.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Okay, is he... Hang on. Yeah.
But in 1972, so while he was in London, they tried him in absentia for defection, and he was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. So if he ever went back, and they let him in,
okay, yeah,
he would have gone straight to jail.
prison. Yeah.
For defecting in the first place.
It's a fairly harsh alternative, though, isn't it? Death or 6 years imprisonment.
Yeah. Well, obviously they chose the one that they wanted more.
He's not coming back.
He's definitely not coming back. So he's never going to go out of prison.
It's funny how he... I'm just trying to think. Why? Do you mind if I present this program slagging off, and BBC? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's funny how they were, or whoever gave him the platform was like, yeah, go ahead.
If you have any poo, fling it now.
I don't know whether that. Well, today that would just be a completely independent thing and the views own, as opposed to ER is a massive broadcasting company. So say what you like.
Yeah, but in Britain, even at the time, it was not unknown for people to in the UK. People would be fine to slag. I mean, we love slagging off the government and people in power and authority.
Yeah,
and we're free to do so.
Right.
But if you do it under authoritarian regimes like this, it's literally illegal to criticise the government.
We live in a society of laws.
So
yeah.
And the fact that someone here was allowed to criticise someone else's government, I mean, as a propaganda exercise against the Warsaw Pact, that would have been brilliant for us, or certainly for our allies.
Oh, okay, right.
He was a well-respected writer in his own country.
Yeah, he was
more
huge.
so.
Yeah, very well respected and known.
Oh, okay.
Widely known.
Yeah, it was at the time. It was massive, and it was only because of the criticisms that.
I'm trying to think if there's an equivalent today. I mean, if there will be, but it's just not going to be on a massive platform. It's going to be, someone writing their own book, someone doing their own podcast for the sake of argument. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to on some gigantic.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think about something.
Talk sport. It's not.
Yeah. Anyway, regardless of all that, I still think that the fact that it was an umbrella and also 51% umbrella, I say 49% Waterloo Bridge.
Oh yeah, you reckon?
As bridges go.
It's a key one.
I'd say your Waterloo is of all the bridges. If we think globally, someone would probably say Tower Bridge or London Bridge.
London Bridge.
I'd say Waterloo Bridge is. I'd say Tower Bridge is Gone with the Wind. I'd say Waterloo Bridge is, like, what else won loads of Oscars?
Snow White.
Yep. Gandhi. One of them's Gandhi. Tower Bridge. No, I've said that. Sorry, London Bridge.
London Bridge is Gandhi. Tower Bridge is Gone with the Wind.
I'd say. Actually, if it happened on Tower Bridge, it would have got mega.
Oh yeah, that would have been.
If it happened on
Titanic,
it didn't happen on Chiswick Bridge. It'd be like, oh, some blokes. But it's the key. It's publicity is aided.
Do we know any
by
other
the fact-
bridges?
Brooklyn
Bridge? Where's Brooklyn Bridge on your film list?
No, I'm only doing London. But yes, Brooklyn is obviously high.
It's way up there. What about the Williamsburg Bridge? Now we're only New York.
Richmond Pedestrian Lock Bridge. I would say if
Sydney
he was
Harbour
killed
Bridge,
on Tower Bridge with a snooker cue, I'm just thinking of other permutations. It would have had the same, but umbrella, Waterloo, double tick.
Okay,
I'd say
a good point, well made.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The fascinating bit I find about that is we're not even sure there was an umbrella.
Oh, well,
we're not entirely
right.
sure. No.
Oh, that ruins
That's the bit I find really fascinating.
No, if you recall back,
stick.
if you recall back, this is the evidence we have, which I have mentioned already in the introduction. He looked around to see a man picking up an umbrella who hurried across the street to a waiting taxi. Now, that could have been entirely innocuous.
Yes. Oh, okay. So it just came from that.
That's what we think we know.
The media kind of just exploded that idea.
It may
that
have
it
just
must have
been
been this
the-
gas-propelled crazy
Right. Oh, okay.
MI5 brolly.
And
It
all
may
the
have just been a bloke with a
Yeah,
syringe or whatever.
Yeah.
exactly. Or just a hidden gas gun, just a gun in his pocket.
yeah,
Does it have to be that?
Dropped his umbrella so that he can
Would
get
be
himself
quiet.
in the position, maybe,
yeah, it could. And all the mock-ups you'll see, and all the examples, and all the diagrams you see, are all
Where was
theory
Where was it on his?
on his thigh.
Thigh, right thigh.
So it's hand level
Yeah.
when you've got your hands by your side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone walked past you with their hand in their pocket, and could have fired a pellet gun.
Right,
into you.
yeah, okay.
Bang.
So to build this sophisticated gun into an umbrella is
It's
quite,
like, why would
it's
you
quite
bother?
a major. Yeah, and if you've got a car waiting for you, and you're a member of the KGB in the first place, you're not really that bothered.
No, of course. Or your goal is to get rid
Yeah.
of whoever you're assigned to get rid of.
Yeah, you can disappear
Yeah.
at any moment.
I mean, they could have just
Taxi.
walked up to him with a silencer and just shot him in the face. And
Yeah,
run.
I know. And no one.
No one's going to do anything.
Exactly. Taxi.
Yeah. I mean, the key thing in that story was to have a car waiting.
Yeah,
That was the
Yeah,
most
sure.
important part of the
Yeah.
whole thing.
and without a London covered in CCTV,
Well, yeah, exactly.
disappearing
yeah.
in a taxi is quite straightforward.
Is there a like a X marks the spot thing?
No.
Isn't there?
No,
There should
do
be,
you-
shouldn't
Do you
there?
want to go up there with
Yeah.
talk?
Well, there's a bus stop marks the spot.
Is there? I bet there's a unofficial X. I went to
Maybe. Now I have to
Where did
go.
I
and
go?
look.
I went to Dallas,
Dallas, Texas.
correct? And there is a now, admittedly, while I'm saying this, it may just be any old spray painted X, but in the middle of the road there is a X marks the spot.
Oh, in Dealey Plaza.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I stood on it.
Did you get shot?
I survived, thankfully. The
Did you see any Secret Service men pretending to be local law enforcement or
what are you saying? Hang on, what?
Like
What
what?
kind of?
nothing?
Anyone looking
The-
like everybody else talking to their cuff.
It was. I mean, I was going to say, it was an unofficial. Here it was. Now, as I say, that said, it might have just been a mark on the road, but it was quite significant. X.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I bet there's something somewhere, a little, not exactly a blue plaque position, is it? But
Well, maybe there's one in the Paris Underground.
Hmm.
Because 10 days before
oh yeah,
Georgi Markov received his
yep,
allegedly umbrella-induced wound,
yep.
another Bulgarian defector received a very similar attack on the Paris metro. His name was Vladimir Kostov.
Inconceivable!
Calling it similar is being rather generous.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was attacked.
Identical.
He was identical, but he survived
Was that? How do they know that was umbrella related?
because he saw it happen.
And it went into his leg.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But
And they
Gad-
recovered
they
Mon bleu. No, hang
recovered
on.
a small
a
pellet.
small pellet.
Mon Dieu. Parapluie. Eh.
Don't
What's
want
poisoned?
Jean-
Don't know what poisoned is.
Aidez-moi.
What's leg? Don't know. Jean.
I know. Pied. No, it's foot.
Oh, anyway. This is
Pied
we're not getting anywhere with
Mon
this
pied à droite.
mock translation of
Oh,
a murder.
Jesus. For the benefit of the worldwide audience, we cannot speak French.
The only reason why I brought it up is because I like saying the word parapluie.
It is a superb word.
Duly noted.
If the killer, who presumably got away, this Paris
Yes.
one,
Yes.
if they had a radio receiver or kind of contact with equally baddie people, the
Baddie
what I'm leading up to is the French translation for walkie-talkie is, what is it?
Parle. What's walk? I can't remember.
Marché.
Marché parle.
Good guess. No, it's what did I say? The French translation for walkie-talkie is talkie-walkie.
Of course.
So they that he would have used a talkie-walkie after he'd done the murdering. Probably. Mind you, he wouldn't have got any signal, would he? Because he's in a... Was he in a metro?
It was in the tube station.
Was
Metros. Yeah, it would have been under... Well, I don't know.
Anyway, so who did someone else... Did he die? That bloke die?
Kostov survived.
Hang on.
And it looks like that was the first attack on a Bulgarian defector in this way. And then a more successful one on Markov. Now, let's talk about that attack. So the pellet that was removed from his thigh at post-mortem was, and you're going to like this because you like stats.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, it was the size of a pinhead. So we're talking about the overall size of the pellet was 1.7 millimeters in diameter.
Not big.
Which is 0.067 inches. But then there were holes drilled in it in an X formation, and they were 0.35 of a millimeter.
There were holes drilled in
the pinhead. Yeah.
Blimey. My
so
toolkit
0.35 of
go
a
that
millimeter
way.
Drill hole. Now the smallest I sell at work is 3 mil, so it's and that's 0.014 inches in diameter. So
Wow.
tiny.
We're talking like a hair.
Yeah.
Are we?
Could only be cut by a laser.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not talking about a drill then at all. We're talking about laser.
Yeah. And then lasers.
Is in essence a sophisticated heat beam which we called a laser.
And then
why didn't they just laser him to death?
yeah, it could be
Instead of all this faffing around with an ant
just
gun.
go and shoot him with a
whatever
ray
it
gun.
is.
I'm not sure how powerful lasers were back then, but you could have just warmed up the side of his shoulder after half an hour.
Yeah,
Stay still. Instead of all this
stop that.
flea gun kind of
Yeah.
faffing around.
So on examination, this tiny little pellet inside it had traces of rice in.
Yes. Traces of rice in.
No, it didn't have rice in it.
Yeah.
Surely rice is far too big to get in.
Yeah, it couldn't have got a single grain of
very
rice.
small, those rice pellets.
Yeah.
So inside this tiny pellet contained...
Tiny pellet has a
Yeah.
tiny hole drilled in it. In that tiny
Wow.
hole is ricin, the poison.
Yeah.
But even if they'd known about it, there was no antidote in 1978, so he would have died regardless.
Okay.
And so what it looks like is that they put the poison in the little hole, the crossed holes inside, and then filled in the holes basically with a sort of
Soft wax, wasn't it?
yeah, something that would definitely melt at body temperature. So basically, it's gone into
Oh, so that's how,
the wax or
And that was
sugar
the fault
coating or whatever.
with the one in Paris, wasn't it? Was
That's
that the
what they
holes
think.
didn't quite melt properly. There were still some traces of wax in the holes.
Yeah, that's what they think.
it
So they've
wasn't
recovered
released.
the same
Yeah.
thing, but it hadn't released the rice.
He fell ill and then built up an antibody
Because
from
it
the
hadn't-
little bit that had got into his system to protect him.
Okay.
Exactly.
So hang on, who was the Paris...
It was another
Was he Bulgarian?
Bulgarian
So it's the
defector.
same deal, but
Same deal.
he'd defected to Paris.
Yeah.
So it could have been the same person, couldn't it? Because
Yeah.
he was...
I
Actually,
think
he-
that's pretty likely.
Yeah.
Just the
That
way
said, you could argue that the first one didn't work, so he was probably carted off and sacked.
Sacked in the nicest possible way. Yeah, well, I mean, the investigation at the time, obviously because there was a murder investigation, didn't come up with anything conclusive. But later KGB defectors, the two Olegs, Oleg Kaligin and Oleg Gordievsky, they
Hang on, who are they? Where
they
does
were
this come from?
former KGB. They
Yeah.
defected from Russia, from the Soviet Union.
At that time?
Yeah, a little later.
Oh, okay.
And they both corroborated the story that the pellet and the ricin had been generated by the Soviet Union at the request of the Bulgarian Secret Service.
They knew that that's what the method was.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they both said that the Bulgarian Secret Service agent who the weapon was given to was named Francesco Golino, who was Italian, but he was working
Okay.
for the Bulgarian
Yep.
Secret Service, apparently. Now, he is still at large.
You lucky bastard.
Is he?
Oh.
Yeah, he apparently last heard living in Denmark. Never charged, never brought in, as far as I know.
Oh, so they knew where he was, but
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I suppose they haven't really got
In spy
much
terms,
evidence.
you know, you're talking about KGB agents. We're talking about Bulgarian Secret Service. In terms of spyness,
Yep.
the name comes up. You keep an eye on them, don't you? Surveillance and everything else.
do you?
But no charges have been brought.
He
Do
must
you?
be a
Yeah, you
fairly
do.
old man by now.
I would think.
If not,
He's at least our
deceased.
age. He was around in 1978, so with pellets. Yeah, so apparently, yeah, that's how we know it's Bulgarian Secret Service. We know it was Bulgarian Secret Service that tried to kill the Bulgarian defectors. We know that they were Soviet-backed, the government, and also the assassination, or we believe that if we believe the KGB agents.
What was the fallout from the point of view of, you know, British government? Kind of, how dare you perpetrate this on our soil?
Well, very
kind of
little,
thing.
and we know that because we can look at how it has continued to this day. That kind of thing going on.
Skripal, for
So you got
example.
Skripal, in 2018. That was Soviet. That was Novichok.
Yeah,
And then 2006, you had Litvinenko with
yes,
the polonium.
remember that? Yep, yep. Polonium.
In 2012, there was a German whose name wasn't released, but he was stabbed with an umbrella.
Was he?
Yeah, and he died of mercury poisoning, which was apparently administered
Are we talking about
by
in
umbrella.
Germany?
In Germany.
Oh, okay.
In 2012.
Wow.
So not only are they still up to their old tricks, but they're using very
still got-
similar...
That's almost a comic nod, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's like, you see, remember this?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
It's just two fingers.
he was
Literally
a
say, yeah, what are you going to do?
he could have been a businessman walking over Waterloo Bridge, 70s, bowler hat, umbrella, double tick.
Bearing in mind that the regime collapsed in 1989,
Yep.
so Markov was basically completely re-established in Bulgaria. The government gave him the Order of the Staroplanina, which basically means the Order of the Balkan Mountains, which is the highest award in the nation.
Balkans are very high.
They are. And he got it basically not only for his literary works, but also for his opposition to the communist regime. And in 2014, in Sofia, the capital, a statue was erected in his honour as well, which I've seen. It's very nice. So yeah, he's completely vindicated, and he's gone back to in the country because he was so well respected. Obviously, it was only him versus the government. You know, everything has been reinstated because after he died, all of his works were withdrawn by the government from bookshelves. You couldn't put on his plays, couldn't read his books. But with the collapse of the government, he's been
Right,
completely
okay. So he's
reinstated.
back to being whatever,
a
literary...
hero. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Wow.
And deservedly so. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if you think of Orwell's 1984, kind of about authoritarianism. He was literally had lived that, and that's what he was writing. That sort of style of writing.
Wow.
In fact, I can end with a quote. This is a great one. This is from his novel *The Truth That Killed*. And it sounds very, very Orwellian. So, lies and truth swap their values with the frequency of an alternating current. We've seen how personality vanishes and individuality is destroyed, how the spiritual life of a whole people is corrupted to turn them into a listless flock of sheep. We've seen so many of those demonstrations which humiliate human dignity, where normal people are expected to applaud some paltry mediocrity who has proclaimed himself a demigod and condescendingly waves to them from the heights of his police inviolability.
Sounds like it was written this week.
Yeah, well, it's very much, very much.
When and
timeless.
how that was from a whatever 70s
Yeah,
publication thing.
yeah.
I mean, it completely smacks of TV/film adaptation. But is there? I must admit, I've never heard of a version of it. But is there? Have you found anything?
No, I mean, as a tool, umbrella would have been used a lot in like popular culture, you know, but more as an indicator of Britishness rather than anything else. They use. I think the film King's Man has like an umbrella shield.
Oh, does it? Right, okay.
Shield or something.
Oh, he does have a shield, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. But I mean, you can buy an umbrella gun. They are available
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it would be illegal in the UK,
Oh, okay.
I would think, because it's a gun.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if they got direct inspiration from this case or not. Seems doubtful. Ballistically,
well, where
it
else
had
would
to be
they?
quite
Well, I suppose it's. I mean, let's face it. When you're a kid and you pick up an umbrella,
It's a gun.
it's a gun.
That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've discussed over the course of the episode, just Google it or something. You can see daily true crime updates on our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can support the show with a PayPal donation, and links to all of those are on our website, truecrimediary.co.uk. Join us next time when we will be similarly discussing and digressing on another event in true crime history. Until then, my thanks to Jed and Rue. My name's Mark, and we'll see you on the next date in our True Crime Diary.